So again, thank you all for being here. Super excited to see you all. Miss Wright, just keep an eye on the waiting room if people pop in just to accept them. We're really here today just to kind of connect with our families and our alumni around what the fall will look like for this upcoming school year. So our agenda for the next hour or so is twofold. We're going to first really reflect back on spring 2020 and kind of talk about our experience supporting our alumni this past semester and kind of what we learned about based on our successes and our challenges. We're going to look into the fall 2020 outlook and look into like academics, being on campus, tuition and fees, room and board. What are schools saying and doing about the fall? And I want to share with you some resources that we've developed within our own persistence project to support you and your alumni as you're making these decisions over the summer to decide what is best for you and your family this upcoming fall academic year. So first, when we think back to the spring semester and COVID-19, it really all started the week of March 9th. And it was really a rapidly developing story. So many schools were on spring break at the time or starting to go on to spring break. And this is when COVID-19 really started to accelerate and really show its impact in the United States. And that week of March 9th, I believe Amherst College was the first school to say, our students will not be returning back from spring break. They're going to be 100% remote when break is over. And as soon as one school made that decision, Harvard followed, UMass Boston followed, and pretty much every school in the Northeast and around the country made the decision to transfer over to being completely remote for the remainder of the semester. And pretty much for that week and the weeks after, Ms. Wright, Mr. Alexander, and I really spent a lot of time gathering updates from alumni, ensuring that they were safe, that they were responding to their school's decisions to go remote. And we were really just trying to find ways to assess the needs of our alumni and ensure that despite this challenge and this rapidly developing story, we were there to support them and provide them with whatever they needed to get home and to get there safely. So throughout March 16th to the end of the semester, we were using our check-ins to ensure that our alumni felt safe and that they were progressing and maintaining persistence with their credits and their coursework, and then using alumni surveys to get a better sense of how we could step in and provide supports. And with those surveys, we were able to do a lot. So from purchasing academic supplies like textbooks and different equipment for coursework to food security, a lot of our alum being at home, they had extra responsibility to take care of sick loved ones or younger siblings. So just having this like a food gift card through Uber Eats just to kind of cover a meal, whether it be lunch or dinner, and just kind of avoid having it be one less thing to worry about, really ensured that our students were able to focus on providing for their families, but also staying on top of their coursework. We also were able to address a lot of tech issues, from providing laptops to providing hotspots for better consistent Wi-Fi. Our alum were able to kind of not lose out or have any glitches when it came to doing their coursework. Another one that was very kind of in the moment was travel and storage. So for a lot of students, they had to make decisions to leave campus pretty quickly. And in many cases, they had less than a week to pack up their things and get home. So just even getting storage facilities and storage units near campus to helping alum with getting bus tickets and flights home, that was just an easy thing for us to step in and ensure that that was one less thing to worry about for our alumni. We also helped with work-study compensation. So many of our students use work-study as a viable means of employment and for financial resources on campus. In many cases, our students are using work-study to pay for textbooks, to pay for fun things that they want to do on campus, and even many times they're bringing home that money to family to provide on the home front. And with the transition to being remote and classes being online, a lot of our students lost out on continuing to make money through work-study. So we were able to kind of step in and provide that compensation in place of the university and ensure that through May 2020, our students weren't losing out on that work-study paycheck. And then lastly, one of our more recent developments has been helping our alum to take on some courses academically over the summer. Because coursework was online, a lot of the tuition and fees for online coursework was extremely affordable. So many of our students were able to make up credits or accelerate their credits based on some of these summer courses that they were taking this summer. When we think back to the spring semester, there are a lot of successes and also some challenges that we have to think about and address as we prepare for the fall. When it comes to our successes, it was really easy for us to address and resolve technology needs. It's easy for us to provide our alum with one of our Chromebooks that are in-house, or to provide them with a hotspot, or to give them a better working keyboard or a mouse. Those things are very easy to resolve and very easy to fix. We also found a lot of success with advising our students on a variety of issues. The first was pass-fail. So a lot of the universities went universal pass-fail, or gave students the ability to make all of their courses pass-fail, which was a new thing that happened this year. Pass-fail has always been a policy available at schools, but for the most part, there's a maximum number of courses one could take pass-fail. Usually it's 1 to 2 a semester, depending on your school. Whereas this past semester, everyone was allowed pretty much to any degree what they wanted to take to be pass-fail. So we were able to have some really good, thoughtful conversations with students about which courses they felt they were doing strong in already and would receive high marks, and which grades they were kind of more concerned about, that they would kind of lean more toward the pass-fail policy. So because of the grading we saw this semester, we did see a lot of our students maintain credits or improve their credit accumulation just based on some of this more generous grading policy. The other area that we saw some success with advising was around housing. So a lot of students could place a special circumstance request to stay on campus despite school closing. So we were able to really kind of weigh the pros and cons of staying on campus or going home this past semester based on students' own comfort levels with being home, any challenges that were at home or could be challenges at home with academic learning, and just kind of their comfort with being on campus and being a little more isolated than normal. So we were able to really have some really thoughtful and very specific and advanced level discussions around when is it okay to stay on campus and when should you probably decide to look into storage or move out and go home for the rest of the semester. When it comes to some challenges, one thing that we saw that was a challenge was tutoring. So many universities, they always have great resources when it comes to tutoring resource centers and health and wellness resource centers. But the transition to remote was that much more difficult. A lot of our students had to adjust for the first time to learning online, which made it that much harder for them to seek out some of these resources that were also virtual or remote, or kind of had a little bit of a less clear understanding of how those were working in the remote world. We were able to offer our alumni some tutoring, but I think with so much happening that was new for our students, it was hard to commit to something else beyond just kind of surviving and looking to get through each day, day by day. So one area that we are looking to improve this coming fall is providing our alumni with more robust supports when it comes to tutoring. We definitely have a wealth of people who are interested and invested in providing the support to our alumni. And I think our alumni, looking back now and from talking to some after the semester has been over, wish they would have tapped more into this resource when it was available this spring. So I know that there'll be a need this fall, and it'll be important for us to think about how can we ensure that our alumni don't view this tutoring as like an extra thing to do, but rather a really powerful benefit that will ensure that they are successful beyond just what they're being offered on campus. The second thing is adapting to Zoom courses and check-ins. So professors, while I love them, I think adapting to Zoom was challenging for anyone who is teaching in this world. So kind of developing a better sense of how to support students through Zoom courses, and also how do we ensure that our check-ins are as effective on Zoom as they are in person. Because Ms. Wright and Mr. Alexander are always kind of going over the phone call, like doing phone calls and popping in on campus visits with students and having more in-person conversations. So the transition to being more virtual and having this happen through a Zoom was unique for not only us, but also for our students. So really thinking about how do we make our Zoom check-ins engaging and feeling very fruitful and worthwhile for our alumni is another key challenge and a key focus area for this work this upcoming semester. And then lastly, which has been the hardest, has been how do we support our alumni with finding quiet and productive workspaces to do their work at home. We can always provide a lot of tech support and financial support, a lot of things we can check off pretty quickly, but it's a lot harder to navigate how do you have conversations with our alumni around having maybe some difficult conversations with family or siblings about needing a quiet space to take a test, or to need to prioritize doing work instead of doing things around the house or providing sibling care. So we are looking into some strategic and creative ways to ensure that our alumni can be safe and productive and quiet at home, but also are there other areas in the community that they can go to ensure that they can get this work done when they have to? Because we don't want to have being at home to be a hindrance or a challenge for alumni when it comes to persisting academically. And I think one of the biggest successes that we've found recently through the data, we recently went through and collected a lot of our alumni's unofficial transcripts. As of today, after looking at spring 2020 semester grades, only 5.5% of our alumni slowed down during the spring semester. So that's a testament to our alum. Our alum are strong, they're fantastic, they're resilient, and they don't let a pandemic slow them down or derail them from pursuing their goal of achieving a college degree. So while I wish that was 0% slowed down, I am glad to know that based on our initial data, only 5% of alumni did slow down, and we are looking at a lot of alum who either maintained being on track or even accelerated their on track to graduation timeline based on the pass-fail policies and also taking some summer courses this current semester. So I'll go into more about our best practices and kind of how we're going to address some of the fall concerns later on in this PowerPoint. But I first wanted to start you all off with a slide based on how schools are approaching fall 2020 this upcoming semester. So this is a pie chart coming from the Chronicle of Higher Ed. And you can see that based on a little over 1,000 schools that were surveyed here, that every school is approaching the fall in a variety of ways. And every day I look at this pie chart, it is updated real time. So every day I'm looking at it, the pie is changing in different ways. A few months ago, planning in person was very popular. And as you can see here, it is still very much the #1 choice for a lot of institutions of higher ed. But I know that every day moving forward, especially as we get closer to August and move-in day, I'm expecting this pie to change. This pie is, I think, kind of a good representation of just where higher ed is at right now. It is very messy. A lot of schools are frantically deciding their plans, and many are changing them in the moment and having to think of plan A, B, C, and D. So know that what you're hearing from your institutions now is a good starting point, but don't be surprised if in a week or two or closer to the start of the semester, things change. So when it comes to how courses will be taught this year, colleges and universities are using kind of 3 different approaches. The first approach is in person. So the in-person approach is what we all know. We've all been used to this before. It's you being in a classroom with your professor, learning real time with all of those other students at your university that are taking that class. There's also online options, and online options can happen both in 2 different ways, synchronous and asynchronous. So when it comes to synchronous learning would be you are hopping onto Zoom at a certain time with all the other students that are in that class, and you're learning real time with that professor teaching live on Zoom. So for a lot of our alum in the room, a lot of what you did this past semester was probably synchronous Zoom online classes. You had a set time to get onto that class, and it was a consistent schedule that you were hopping onto for that class. You may have also experienced some asynchronous learning. Asynchronous learning would be kind of working at your own pace. There's no set time for a class per se, but you're giving a set list of tasks that you're working on at your own pace, whether it be during the evening or the weekend. It's very much a go at your own pace, do the work when you can, and there are deadlines along the way to kind of track progress and to track that you are completing the assignments and receiving feedback. And the last one is a hybrid. So the hybrid model is what's being offered by a majority of the schools that are attended by Boston Prep. And a hybrid model is essentially a balance of both in-person and remote coursework. And a lot of schools are working this summer to ensure that their hybrid models, whether you're online or in person, are equally effective. This past semester, I would say, was a response to the pandemic. It was very much how do we react to what's happening in real time? Whereas now a lot of schools are really building out and buying and purchasing a lot of high quality online resources and materials to ensure that online learning looks and feels as if it would be in person. So when it comes to the hybrid model, part of your coursework would be completed asynchronously, while the other part is completed in person. So you may have a course, for example, that meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You may meet only for one of those days that week, and then the other 2 days you are spent doing the work independently and seeking out resources through office hours and other resource centers to ensure that you're doing the work and receiving feedback. Across the learning models, every institution is offering a certain percent of courses in person. So a lot of the terminology that schools are using is called de-densifying campuses. So they're trying to find ways to reduce density and ensure that there can be some aspects of campus life for students, but in what ways can we do that in a way that's still safe and maintains the health codes and the health and safety of all of our students. So for the most part, a lot of institutions are saying they can offer between 30 and 40% of courses in person. When it comes to the hybrid model, there are a couple of things that you should expect. The first is class format or class size will definitely impact learning format. So a lot of intro courses and lectures, those courses that are 300 plus students in a big lecture hall are most likely going to be virtual. Whereas classes that are a little more hands-on, that require being on campus, require like lab work or very like heavy machinery or heavy computers, those would be in person. I would also expect to see a lot of your courses be broken into smaller sections. So maybe one of your intro to sociology classes that has 120 kids, you could see some outdoor seating or separate locations, or those sections being broken down to smaller classes where you have alternating between in-person and remote. So for example, to my example before, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday courses, you could see maybe A week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're in person, but then B week, you're still on campus, but all of your classes for that week are online. I would also expect for you to see yourself engaging with TAs more frequently. A lot of professors are in the high risk category, so they may opt to teach their courses remotely and really rely on TAs who are typically younger to provide more of the in-person support and instruction. And then lastly, I would expect that courses are going to be offered at unique times. I would expect some courses to happen during the evening or also during the weekend hours. When it comes to the fall calendar for academics, a lot of schools are moving up the start of their fall classes. So for all of the schools that our alumni attend, the earliest date I've seen for the start of fall classes is August 17th, whereas the latest, this is typically for the state schools in Massachusetts, it's September 9th. And for a lot of schools, they're just trying to get ahead of the curve. I think the science is showing and proving us that there will be a second wave this coming fall. And a lot of schools want to get as much learning as possible in before that second wave hits. So definitely be on the lookout for your school's calendar. If it's not been shared with you yet, it should be very soon. But know that many schools moving in is going to happen earlier and courses will start much sooner than ever before. Another way that schools are trying to get as many days in as possible is not observing federal holidays. So from Labor Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, I expect a lot of schools to say that those days that were typically viewed as holidays are no longer the case. So a lot more classes during the week to kind of get to the end point, which is Thanksgiving break. So a majority of our institutions are not planning to have students come back after the fall break. They're going to transition to being 100% remote, and that will also include final exams. And that's really just for the health and safety of all, because if you think about fall break, Thanksgiving, it's right at the start of like the cold weather season. All of our students would typically go home from campus to wherever they may be living. And universities and colleges will not want to have all those students return back after a week for 3 more weeks of classes. It just kind of increases the risk of community spread and the COVID-19 virus spreading much more easily. So know that across the board, for the most part, if a school hasn't said it yet, I guarantee you that at some point they are going to say after the break, we are 100% remote with final exams being offline virtually. When it comes to living on campus, the world that we knew of campus experiences and living on campus will be vastly different than it ever has been before. So again, a lot of schools are finding ways to reduce density on campus. One of those ways is reducing dorm sizes. So for a lot of students, doubles are now becoming singles, quads are becoming doubles, and triples are becoming doubles as well. So schools want to offer students the chance to be on campus because at the end of the day, we still know that being on campus has value, and colleges want students to find the benefits of living on a college campus, being with their friends, being around resources, having a chance to just gain some independence. But they also know that dorms are a hotbed for COVID-19 and for community spread. So they are going to see a significant reducing in dorm size. Even some schools are looking into hotels and other living situations nearby their campus to allow for students to safely live in a socially distanced way. You can also expect that all schools will require face masks, and there will be frequent testing for COVID-19, temperature checks, and contact tracing. Many schools are going to have an app that students will have to download and use so that if you do test positive, they can kind of follow your tracks, to speak, and see kind of where you were and maybe who you may have been in contact with, so they can also ensure that those people are being tested and isolating if they have to. When it comes to campus, again, many schools are going to require students when they arrive to quarantine or isolate for 14 days to ensure that no one is coming with a positive testing result. And if you do test positive, they will have a space on campus to allow for isolation and to allow for quarantining. Another thing I've seen, this is a little unclear for every school that we have for alumni, but kind of more from like a national level. A lot of schools are very worried about liability. Students coming to campus, but then contracting the COVID-19 virus, and then maybe themselves getting deathly sick or contracting that and hurting their families. Schools do not want to be held liable for any sort of negative financial or health repercussions that happen to students or families. So if you are living on campus, you could see your school require you to sign a liability waiver saying that you understand the risk of being on campus and that it does put you at a higher risk of contracting COVID-19. And then when it comes to dining options, eating in the dining hall is not going to be very much a thing. You will see a lot of takeout options or having small windows of times for when students can come to collect their things. So there's no longer going to be a self-service counter. A lot of things will be already packaged and boxed, and it's very much you coming by to collect, to eat then outside, or to eat in your dorm room. When it comes to move-in day will also look a lot different than it has in the past. So schools will have distancing measures put in place, and there will be a very small window for alumni to move in. I've already heard from some alumni that for many schools, it's under an hour. So you have from 12 to 1 on this certain day to get all your stuff in. You can't like drop your stuff off and go to Walmart to pick up a dresser or to pick up a lamp. Everything that you bring with you is going to be what you need that day to move in within that timeline. So with that, we are also encouraging our alumni to pack lightly, especially for those who are going to schools that are farther away from home. Because while it hasn't happened yet, I imagine that at some point this year, your student will have to go remote and be online, just given the fact that I think, are going to expect a second wave of the pandemic to come in the fall. So we do encourage you to pack lightly to avoid having to require storage, and also to make it a little easier to fly home if you are coming home. To have one suitcase or two suitcases over having a ton will just allow for you to get off that campus much quicker than maybe it was this past semester. Institutions are also going to limit the number of people who can help you move in. So before, your entire crew, family and friends could come see you off to college. Now many schools are putting a cap, mostly at 1 to 2 per student. So I think when it comes to the packing lightly, that's another thing. You're not going to have a lot of hands to help you move things in. So I recommend keeping it to whatever the limit is for your institution. And then lastly, this is not across the board, but I was seeing this for UMass Dartmouth. Some schools are going to require you to have additional things on your person to be allowed to live on campus. So UMass Dartmouth, for example, is going to require every student to have a personal digital thermometer to be on campus. I'm not sure what they're going to use that monitor for. I'm not sure if it's like for self temperature checks or just to have you use that one when going for testing. but there could be some additional requirements when it comes to living on campus that are unlike past experiences. When it comes to living on campus, there are pros and cons. And my goal and our goal here as Boston Prep and the Persistence Project is not to sway you to one decision over the other. We've always touted living on college campuses as being a really huge indicator and driver of college persistence, but I think we also are very much living in a very unique and unusual time. And we don't want we aren't going to say what is best for you and your family. I think you have to really decide based on your own levels of health and your own risk levels, what is best for you. And I think having conversations with your loved ones, with your family, and thinking about this personally for yourself is the most important thing. We are definitely here to be a sounding board and to offer you some advice. But like I said, this is definitely a personal choice, and I can see pros and cons for both. So it's kind of hard for even myself to decide what is the best option for our alumni. So I think it always will come down to your own personal preference. But for many schools, alumni will have to confirm their housing status by July. So many schools are looking quickly now to make sure that their plans are robust, that they're safe, that they meet health guidelines and health codes. So for any student who is on the fence about being on campus, they should notify their school their plan definitely by the end of this month. It's important to note that for that decision, it should be viewed as final. So if you say that you're not going to live on campus, you can't go back and change your mind in 3 weeks. Same thing again, if you say that you're living on campus, but then decide closer to the semester, you know what, COVID-19 has really started to peak in my community, I'm a little worried about going to campus, you won't be able to change your mind without probably incurring some sort of financial penalty. So when you think about this housing choice, please make sure that you are 100% confident that despite what may happen in 6 weeks from now, this is the choice you want to stick with. The only time a school is not going to charge you for housing is if you are living on campus and say in October or November before Thanksgiving break, they have to close the building down because of a rise in cases. So if you were asked to leave campus because of COVID, you are not going to be charged for the additional housing and room and board fees that you normally would be charged for. Many schools are going to prorate the loss of time not on campus to ensure that you're not being charged for anything additional. When it comes to the pros of being on campus, the three that I really think that come to mind to me are just that quiet and productive space to study, and also having easy access to academic and mental health resources. I think those are critical for our alumni, and it can definitely provide that space for them to be productive and to find a lot of comfort in doing their work in a very collegiate setting. And also the social interaction is key. I'm sure many of our alum miss their friends, they miss being on campus and having the sense of independence. So this fall, if you are allowed to, I think you could probably regain some of that back. I think the social interaction will look a lot different given health guidelines, but I know that being on campus, that's a huge draw, and we wouldn't want our students to lose out on that opportunity. When it comes to the cons, I think there's potential and most likely another chance for campuses to shut down and go back to 100% remote learning. So you could move in, but then 6 weeks later, you're back home again. So that sometimes that disruption in home life and campus life can definitely be jarring, and it can take a little while for students to kind of get back into a groove. So if you are one who likes to kind of be consistent and kind of keep a steady flow, being on a campus may not be for you, because I would expect at some point you're back home and having to quickly make decisions while also kind of going through classwork. I think you're going to also put yourself higher at risk for contracting COVID. I think you're going to be in a campus that's much more dense than where you are right now at home. And to be frank, I was once a college student. I don't know how many college-age students are going to completely follow the guidelines and the strict rules that communities are putting in place. I think there will still be moments of breaking these norms and breaking these patterns. It's completely normal for college students to want to do this and to rebel a bit. So I can't be 100% confident that every school is going to see their guidelines be completely followed by every student at every moment. And then also there could be feelings of isolation and distance from loved ones. So while you're on campus, it will not be as busy and active as it once was before. It'll be pretty quiet for the most part. And you may feel like you're a little isolated at times, or you feel like you're farther away from your loved ones, especially maybe while all this is happening, it can be very jarring to be away from those you care about and love when there's so much happening right now in the world. So I think while there is some beauty to being interactive with social friends and being independent, I think there also could be this flip side of feeling a little lonely and sad about being away from home. When it comes to the financial implications, as I mentioned before, you will not be charged room and board if you are opting out of living on campus. All of your schools will update your award letter to reflect your housing status. So right now, for many of you, you are probably packaged as a resident student. So it's including room and board cost and also scholarship and grants going toward paying some of your room and board. If you decide to be a commuter, I would expect for your award letter to change to reflect that status. So when your bill is available, which is probably in the next week or two, I highly recommend making sure you look at that very closely to ensure that there's nothing that's being extra charged or that looks wonky or out of place. Your alumni counselors are going to also ask you for a copy of your bill statement. So know that we're going to do a double check with you on that. But just a good thing for you to know, there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to the bill this coming semester. So it'll be good for you to have a good sense of what's being charged and what's there for the right reasons and what's kind of confusing. Unfortunately, a lot of schools are not going to decrease the cost of attendance. Out of all the schools I've researched for our alumni, the only school that was going to make any sort of reduction in cost of attendance for this coming school year was Williams College. Most schools are going to continue with the same cost for this coming year. And they're kind of touting their belief that this online platform that they've been developing this summer will be as robust and as effective as in-person learning. There are a few schools that are freezing tuition. So freezing tuition means that they are not increasing tuition for this upcoming school year. So every year, schools adjust the cost of attendance slightly based on their endowments and just the economy. Pretty much every school will slightly increase by a little bit, about 1,000 or more a year. So some schools have decided we're not going to increase at all for 2019 or 2020, 2021. We're going to maintain the same cost that we did for 19 and 20. So Bridgewater State is one of those schools, for example, that has frozen their tuition and fees for the school year. And then lastly, some schools are prorating room and board for time not spent on campus. So for all those schools that are saying that you're going to be remote after Thanksgiving break, they are not going to charge you for the time that you're not on campus. So that post-Thanksgiving through the end of the semester. So in many cases, a lot of schools are giving back 10 or 15% of room and board to reflect time not spent on campus. I do expect a similar thing again. If you are on campus and you have to leave earlier, I would expect that schools would also honor and acknowledge that kind of same approach if you were asked to leave campus earlier than Thanksgiving break. So I know I've talked a lot and there are so many different options. So I wanted to kind of give you a slide that kind of gives you a simple kind of approach to deciding what is best for you and your family. So the first decision is campus options. So for option A, you may have already been commuting. Maybe you went to Bunker Hill or UMass Boston or Wentworth. In that case, campus was never really going to be an option for you. You were always living at home. So that's option A. Option B could be housing is available. So a lot of schools are saying they're allowing any student that wants to come back a space on campus. That's when you have to decide with option B, is it best for me to be on campus for my academic learning semester, or is it better for me to be at home? Option C, housing isn't available, but you can request it based on a special circumstance. And for example, here, Bowdoin, for example, is only allowing freshmen on campus this fall semester. MIT is only allowing seniors on campus. If you are not in one of those groups of students, many schools are going to allow you to request a special circumstance to be allowed to be on campus despite you not being a freshman or a senior. Typically, they're looking at students who being at home could be a challenge to their identity or to their ability to be academically successful. So if you feel like you're in one of those buckets where you're not being allowed on campus, but you feel like you have a good case to state your claim as to why being on campus could help you, I would highly recommend seeking out that special circumstance and applying to be on campus if you want to do that. When it comes to the courses, we have 4 options. Option 1 is your course is 100% remote and it's synchronous. So you're hopping onto a Zoom at a certain time and you're learning live but remote. Option B, your course could be 100% remote, but it's asynchronous. You were given your syllabi for the semester. You have some good touch points and check-ins with your professor, but for the most part, it's here are the deadlines, here are the assignments, go off and do them. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Option C will be 100% in person. So this is very rare. There are some schools that are saying they're going to offer certain classes only in person. I imagine they're going to start offering this as a hybrid as well. But right now, like I said, this is rare, but there are some courses out there, mostly labs, for example, that'll be 100% in person with no remote option. And then the last option, which is the largest, will be the hybrid. So both remotely and in person. And students can decide based on their own preference and where they are on campus, whether they are going to be remote or in person. And lastly, the biggest takeaway from all this, as I said, I would expect remote learning at some point this upcoming semester, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's 100% remote, or all schools have to shut down again. I would expect the worst case scenario. Please be prepared to have to make that transition again at some point if we have to. So when it comes to our persistence project resources, I wanted to show you all a document that we've been creating that can hopefully be a huge assistance to you and your families. So on our school website, there is a banner for COVID resources. If you click on that COVID banner, it takes you to all of the resources that we've been compiling for our families. And as you scroll down, there is a section dedicated to alumni. This is where you can see the info about the town hall that we're having currently, and also kind of see some of the letters that we sent out early in March when the schools were starting to shut down due to the pandemic. But here on this banner here, learn about your institution's reopening plans. If you click this link, it'll take you to a spreadsheet that has two tabs. The first tab is dedicated to our class of 2020 students, our rising freshmen who just graduated from high school. This is reflecting all the approaches to orientation for this summer. As you might expect, a lot of schools have decided to go online for orientation. So if you have not signed up for orientation yet and you're a rising freshman, this is your go-to spot with links to figure out how your school is approaching orientation and when you have to sign up for that session. More importantly, this tracker here is all of the fall 2020 plans for all of our currently enrolled Boston Prep alumni. So you can find your direct school. So for example, here's Bentley. We can see that based on Bentley, they are offering a hybrid model with all courses being offered online. There'll be some new rotations and less in-person frequency, and then campus will have will go remote at Thanksgiving break. You can also see the start of the fall classes. So they're going to start August 31st. What is the option to live on campus? And then what are the times for moving in? A lot of schools are still developing in this process now, so know that this will be updated. But for every school, I've in parentheses, when was the last time I updated it? And I've also included to the far right, the link to their plan. So please view my tracker as kind of the starting point for gaining resources about your school's decision for fall 2020, but know that every school has a much more robust plan on their website. So Bentley, for example, has an entire website called Back to Bentley, where if you have questions about dining or health and wellness or testing, you can click on the guidelines and learn a lot more. So I highly recommend not just looking at my information, but please, please, please go to your school's website based on the link that I provided and spend a few moments, hours, some summer reading, kind of taking a deep dive into all these things, because students will be expected to know this when they get off onto campus this fall. And it'll be good for you to kind of start thinking about what you need to know and asking questions to make sure that you're most informed before you make any final decisions based on housing or based on your coursework. So when it comes to some best practices, we really think having a conversation with your family about campus versus virtual is critical. We are very happy to be thought partners in that process with you, but I will reiterate, we do not want to sway you to a certain approach. Both have equal pros and cons, and it's going to really come down to your own personal preference. But if you want to have a deeper conversation with us and have us be a sounding board, we're happy to be there, but we are not going to make this decision for you or force you to decide one over the other. When it comes to your fall courses, a lot of schools have already started to update what courses are going to be offered remotely and which ones are going to be offered in person. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the courses that you're signed up for, because it should start to note how that course is being delivered to you. I'd imagine most students are going to have a balance if they're being on campus, a couple of classes in person, and then some that are going to be hybrid and remote. It'd be good now, before classes have started or add drop has happened, to decide what's best for you. Do you want more of your classes to be online? Do you want more of them to be in person or be a hybrid? What is best for you is important here. So try to balance your best learning style with your course schedule. Again, I'll reiterate, confirming your fall 2020 bill is accurate. Make sure that the numbers make sense. Make sure you send that to your alumni counselor so we can review it with you as part of your book stipend. We don't want to make sure that there's any unnecessary or odd charges based on your financial aid. And then lastly, momentum is key. We know that continuing college and maintaining enrollment semester by semester is critical to gaining your diploma. So we definitely are not looking to advising our students toward gap years or even reducing their course load. We highly encourage you to kind of continue to persevere and push through, and know that schools are going to be much better at responding to your needs this semester. And we are going to still be here 100% of the way to ensure that your experience remotely or in person is as best as it possibly can be. And then in terms of some of our supports that we already are starting to develop and make sure are available for fall 2020, we are increasing our book stipend. So for all those alum in the room, expect a much bigger paycheck or book stipend check than you have in the past, just based on the need to ensure that you feel supported to buy your books and your supplies, and also to cover maybe any other work compensation or monetary needs that you could be struggling with. We are also looking into offering Boston Prep as a space for alumni. For those that are going to be home, or for those that are forced to go home based on another school closure, we don't want studying at home to be a challenge for our alumni, especially for taking exams. So we are going to find a way to allow Boston Prep alumni to use our space, to use our facility as a way to study and to do work productively. We're going to also utilize tutoring again. So we're going to definitely seek out from our One Team community those who would like to support our alum with tutoring. So if you're thinking about, I got an orgo class coming up, or a really hard calc exam, or I just need to have someone read my paper, we're going to have those supports in place to provide that for you. Obviously, we always want you to go to your school as well, but if you feel like your school supports are lacking, know that we're going to also be there to supplement. And then eventually, closer to early August, we're going to send out a fall survey again to seek out what your needs are. What is your tech like? Do you need a hotspot? How's your Chromebook? How's your laptop? Do you need a lamp in your room? Anything that could help with you studying and being productive. We don't want any stone to go left unturned. So if there's anything out there that we can help with that can help you be a better student and to study, we want to help out with. And then again, we are constantly thinking about things and constantly developing this plan. So do not be surprised if we provide more supports or think of different things to do to ensure that this semester continues to be like any other semester, where you are successful and productive. We do not want to have a repeat of the spring for anybody. And then lastly, the biggest takeaway for everyone is communication is key, and so is engagement. So please, when Mr. Alexander and Ms. Wright reach out to you, I understand many of us are busy, so a text back is great, but I think engagement will be critical here. Really kind of getting ahead of your situation, identifying problems early, and being more proactive in your outreach to us will ensure that we can really address any of your needs immediately and very quickly. Being reactive is fine, but the more we can be proactive and get ahead of the curve, we can, I think, really address and really ensure that there's no hiccups along the way. And with that, if there are any questions from the group, I'm happy to take some, and we can kind of talk real time about things that you are thinking about or just want some input or insight on.
I have
Yes,
a
Kelsey.
question. So, I was just looking at your beautiful spreadsheet with all of the colleges, and I just couldn't find mine. Kind of hurt my feelings.
Yes, Miss Wright, let me know. I heard we forgot Northwestern.
I know it's just me, but
Kelsey Ann, I mean, this is ridiculous. Mr. Canto, I don't understand. Us wildcats are upset about that, right?
like
Yeah.
it's just us, but we still need some representation.
I totally agree. So I am going to hop on after this call and make sure that your plan is listed there. I'm sure you've already looked into it. But yeah, I think that's the only school. Like, so that spreadsheet for everyone on the call, like that has the schools from our most popular, like UMass Dartmouth, where we have dozens of alumni, to our one-off schools like Northwestern in this example. That's not there right now, but will be. So it fully captures every alum's experience from class of 2017 through 2020. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Or, yes, Ms. Fuller, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well.
That's great. My question involves a school closing because Selena's school actually shut down.
Oh, really? They've like said like
They're not accepting any more students. If they don't graduate by 2021, they're out. So Selena's not even able to go away to college this fall semester. So we're looking into going to SNHU now.
Yep. Could
Because
you
she
actually
can
stay
do
on the
a
call, Ms.
full
Fuller? So
online.
would you mind staying on the call after so we could talk
Yes.
one-on-one? Because
Yep.
this is
This
news
is very
to me.
specific.
Yeah, very specific. And I was not aware that they were closing.
Yeah.
So let's talk and do some game planning because that'll be important for us to make some moves pretty quickly.
Okay.
Perfect.
I will just stay on. Thank you.
Yep. I think the one thing that I didn't add to the PowerPoint, I think for those who go to schools a little outside of Boston and you're thinking about, do I want to move back to campus? I would think about looking into the data and like what's happening in the area based on like COVID cases. So for example, like Florida, Arizona, California, if you are going to a school that's kind of like a new hotspot or becoming a hotspot, I think that should be something that you take into consideration when deciding, should I move back to campus or not? And on the flip side too, I think at one point Boston was a hotspot as well. So I think if you were in Boston, but then flying out to Stanford, for example, I would probably want to consider maybe staying at home, just given the fact that you are coming from one hotspot to one that isn't, but you are potentially bringing symptoms or be asymptomatic, and we don't want to we want to reduce community spread and kind of do our due diligence to play our part to ensure all communities are safe. Any other questions? I know we have a lot of alum on the call.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Okay, ignore the music in the background. My mom's gonna go sit back to Boston from South Carolina.
Okay, that's all good.
But you said that Boston Prep is gonna be open? I'm staying remote this semester. Is Boston Prep gonna be open to like come in and like just like have study spaces or something like that?
Yep.
Just to get a change of environment.
Yeah, so we will have the school available to alum. I think we still have to figure out some specifics. Like clearly we have to also think about reducing density in our building as well. So it could be evenings, it could be weekends, there could be certain days where it's only certain schools, like, oh, like this is the day for UMass Dartmouth and UMass Boston to come, right? So there could be certain days where you're allowed and other days you're not. But we couldn't just like open the doors to 260 some alum and have them all come in the same day. So expect that there would be some sort of sign up procedure or certain days when you are allowed to be in. And also expect probably some odd hours like evenings or weekends when there are less students in the building. Because we are currently planning to have some of our 6 to 12 students be in the building during the school day as of right now. So more to come on that. That's kind of more like a detailed specific that we still have to kind of chisel out, but it will be part of the plan.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? All right. Well, I'm recording the session, so I will upload the recording, or I'll send out the recording, and also I'll upload the PowerPoint to the website. So for those who are looking just to kind of dive back into the resources a bit more and to review things once again, I'm happy to have that resource be available to you all. Just give it a day or two for it to be there, but it'll be on there, and then definitely be on the lookout for our next survey around just like tech needs for the fall. And we look forward to collaborating. I think this is, another reminder of the importance of the family to school partnership. And I value all the alumni on the call and also the parents who joined and the guardians who joined. Thank you for engaging with us and supporting our work and ensuring that this full circle, this full wraparound really produces great results. I am very hopeful that our alum will continue to persist. And I think the data from the spring really shows that our alumni can handle this when we have 100% of resources put in place and ensure that they are available to our students. So thank you all. And if there are any other questions, Ms. Fuller, please stay on, and others are free to pop off.